Imagine a world without choices. Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC. Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free. So the government is there to protect you and me. UIC objective is to liberate the citizens from colonial bondage, them regulation, them taxation. Rob Jamaica, we independent. Be stronger together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. We're gonna be stronger together. Come we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Non-partisan, constitutional.
Good afternoon, Uniters. Welcome to our Sunday evening live. I think this is the first one we're having in a long time at 1 p.m. Now today we're going to be talking with good afternoon, Mr. Patterson, Ms. Chambers, our president is on. Welcome. Today we have a very interesting topic. We have with us one of our UK Diaspora members, Miss Patrice Elliot, who is a trained clinical therapist. Now, we want to get into the understanding of things like what makes good for good governance, ethics, good morals. What are the things that we should really be looking at and zeroing in on? I mean, I know you've heard our president talk about the history of the political game in Jamaica. He's talked about the importance of understanding what's going on behind the scenes in our political arena so that we can make good, effective decisions when you go to the polls, when you're looking for leaders, when you're even in your own lives. The information becomes very, very important and vital. So towards this idea of empowerment that the UIC is one of the UIC's core values, I introduce Miss Patrice Elliot. Welcome, Miss Elliot. Over to you for your introduction.
Thank you. So this is my first I don't think I've ever done a live in my life, so this is very unusual for me.
Don't worry, you'll be fine. Yes, go ahead.
Right. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, for giving me the opportunity to lend my voice. I do believe it's an awesome and epic movement.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I think you cut out a little bit on the audio. One more time. Go ahead.
I'm saying that the UIC is the most awe-inspiring and epic movement that I have come across. And there are some things that I wrote that I want to make sure that I say, because when I came across the UIC, I thought this is a higher consciousness movement. That's what got me interested. And what the UIC is proposing, I've never heard of it in the world. I study philosophy. I don't know if I'm shouting or if I'm the right.
No, you're fine. I had a fan and I've turned it way down. Right. So I think that was affecting the audience. All right, so go ahead. Perfect. The epic, awesome movement that the UIC is. Right ahead.
And when we're talking about good governance, and you said another word, and I should have written it down. But good governance comes with conscience. Mm-hmm. And that's something that the world well, the governments the world over, majority of the governments the world over, they lack conscience and they lack consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the issue is to me. And so,
I think the other word was ethics and morals,
oh
which
God,
ties
yeah,
into conscience, of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, yeah. So I have a few things to say about this ethics and moral issue, because I do believe there's a spiritual warfare going on,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is.
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
know
We,
I can say, you know what?
listen, man, we need to share with the
Yeah,
people. We need to let the people know and understand, because they probably only hear about some of this stuff in the churches that they go, the pastors, that they may or may not talk about it. But when you're in the political game, it's not usual to hear about the spiritual side of things. Nobody really wants to talk about that. Let's go win at the polls. Let's vote for me, vote for me. That's it. But we really need to understand what's going on. What are we up against? How do we manage ourselves in this process? So go ahead, share on the you were talking about the morals and the ethics.
yeah. Boy, okay. Traumatizing people, what it does, it creates like a cocoon around our minds. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it puts us in a hypnotic state, and that actually stops us from being able to see reality for what it is.
Mm-hmm. So pause right there.
Yeah,
That can be defined as being in a traumatized state of being. Yeah, okay, go ahead, because we're going to flesh it out.
yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, it's like a perpetuating trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and each of us traumatize each other,
Mm-hmm.
and we keep on doing it and doing it and doing it. So because we don't see the root cause, and because you think it's the other person, we
Mm-hmm.
don't realize who's actually doing it. And it was designed to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so they,
So let's
mhm,
so let's pause there and break that down. So the way I treat you, maybe I don't like how you treat me or how I relate to you or how we're relating. And there's some static. You're not so sure what's going on.
mhm,
One of the things I tend to use as a measuring stick is if I'm talking about icicles or popsicles or even water, everybody understands what water is.
mhm,
And then the person that I'm dealing with has a challenge with even relating to water
mhm.
or drinking the water. That's kind of a benchmark to realize something else is going on, because everybody needs to drink water. And so when you're talking about basic things you should be able to do every day, and there's a challenge in moving from point A to point B, my interaction with you now may call, you're not realizing that you're in that
Oh,
state, remember?
no.
And so our interaction now may create some static.
Yes. Mhm.
Yes, so there's a bounce off. There's something that happens with your field and my field, and I might get a headache because I really don't know what is going on with you, and I might take that personal
Yes.
because I'm going on. Why Patrice doing this to me? Why what Patrice doing? And then I might tell you some nice little words and cuss you off, and then there's more conflict and tension, and the next person experiences that. So that can be the core of some of our daily engagement, and we don't even realize that that's what's going on.
That is.
Would that be a good example? What would you say?
You said so many things, so Lord. That's
Well, the interaction, would that be a good example of even some of our
yeah.
daily
When you said you
interactions
say
that
so
we
many
might
things,
assume is regular? We might think it's regular.
when I say you say so many things, I'm talking about the fact that you're talking about water.
Yeah.
You don't. The people listen. People don't even realize what they're doing to the water and how water affects us. So even that,
Mhm.
even,
That's another tangent of it,
you see
though.
what I mean? But you
Yeah,
mentioned
get
that,
you.
and it's
I
like
got you.
we are 70% water.
Hmm.
And the fact that they are spraying chemicals and doing all these things to our food and all
Hmm.
the chemtrails that they've been talking about for so long. And to a lot of people, this sounds like conspiracy theory. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but let's go back to your
Yeah,
original point about
the
the
shrouding.
psychological,
But
yeah,
this
the
this
shrouding
is
that
a part of it. But
happens. So
even this is a part of
yeah,
it. Poisoning our food is a part of it.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
we are made of
yeah,
70% water. This is the thing that people don't understand consciousness. You don't
right.
understand what you are and what your building blocks are. If you're
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
70% water and they're poisoning the water and you're drinking yourself because you are water, like
mm-hmm,
your brain is 90% water.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's one part of what's happening. The next thing is when you're talking about relationship, and when I was doing like doing learning psychology, and no wonder they used to say psychology is of the devil, because they didn't want us to learn psychology, because they didn't want us to understand who we
Awesome.
are.
Right.
So they
Saying hello to some people joining us. Alvira, Mr. Noble, welcome, welcome. Mr. Hoylett. Yes, go ahead,
yeah.
continue, Miss
So
Patrice. They're sending you greetings, by the way. They're hailing you up.
greetings. And I thank you
Yes.
guys for being so loving, because I only can work in loving spaces. I can't deal with.
Yes, we're sending you all the love. All the love so you can come make we talk about the things, man. Talk about the things. Give the people the information because they need to know. They need to
The
understand.
thing is
Yes.
that they used to tell us that they used to talk about nature and nurture, as though we
Yes.
are
The
born,
nature nurture
yeah, as if
theory.
we
Yeah.
were born a certain way. But there is so much science out there now to dispel that. It's
Yeah.
relationship that changes us.
Mm-hmm.
So how we are treated by our parents, they call it significant, what do they call it? Our significant,
Environment.
well, basically significant people, yeah, within your environment.
Significant connection.
That's, yeah. So
Mhm.
anyone that, like a teacher, obviously your parents,
Like an influencer,
yeah,
significant influencer in your life.
so
Right.
things that affect us, right, are things like, what is his name? Off the top of my head, I can't remember his name right now. Maybe I'll remember it after. But he says, even the way that our mothers hold us, tell
Mm-hmm.
us who we are. So from
Mm-hmm.
there, we're interjecting our sense of self just by the touch of our mother. So
Right.
imagine what happens to mothers who are so stressed out and don't know what's happening, and the child is held here. Like,
Yeah.
this child has been traumatized from the very get-go.
Yeah.
How is that child going to know that they're worth something?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And I do like that we're going off topic, because that means that people are going to get bored.
No, we're talking what the ethics is going on. Remember, so we're trying to really give people an understanding that who they are today didn't just
No.
happen. You weren't just born and you just became whatever is going on with you now in your life. It didn't just manifest and jump out at you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything has been constructed in terms of your reality
Exactly.
to have affected, molded, connected with, interacted with, caused all of what you're expressing right now as who you are. That's key to understand. And so when you're looking at your leaders, we need to look at our leaders through those lens as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to understand, you're talking about from the get-go when you're born, how your mother holds you.
Mm-hmm.
This is why it's important. It is something that is prescribed that when you're pregnant, because that goes even into utero, pre-birth,
Mm-hmm.
the environment that the mother is in.
Yes.
Because remember that baby within the belly, you have ears in
Mm-hmm.
there, you have lungs in there, you have eyes, your senses are already being developed and connected to your mother very deeply.
Yes.
And so you come out from that environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that's what you're relating to.
But here's the thing, you see, if you live in a poor country, you've got to breastfeed your child because you don't have a choice. So even that will
Mm-hmm.
give you a bond with your child. So even if you don't know you must breastfeed or you must hold your child
Mm-hmm.
close, the poverty actually allows you have to do it because you don't have a choice. There are
Mm-hmm.
people that do have money, so they feed them with the milk from the cow. And because they say the baby's hungry and this kind of stuff. But even the reason why our milk does not nourish the baby as we think it should is because we're designed that way. We're designed that the baby will be hungry, so we have to constantly pick up the baby. And so even they say this, oh God, I've got so many.
And would you say that causes anxiety?
No. What happens? No, when you're supposed to hold the baby.
The baby, right?
Because whenever you're twitching, there's certain movements in the mum.
Okay. The connection. Yeah.
It actually helps the baby's neurons to develop.
Right.
And speaking to the baby helps the baby's neurons to develop, and it seals the brain, because there are some people, when they do tests on them, like these murderers, people who are murderers and doing all this stuff, when they test their...
Cheryl, give us the term, attachment theory. Quite correct.
Yeah. So when they test their brains, they see that there are gaps in their brains. It's because their brain hasn't formed.
Fully developed in terms of the connections.
And when I saw that, I was like, I make strange connections, but that's when I know God's not sending anyone to hell, because they used to tell you about hell and all these different things. And I know for some people, they're like, what? But I was like, wait a second, because there's science behind why people do what they do. So when these people were telling us God's going to send us to hell, that made me want to find out more. Right. That made me go deeper down the rabbit hole, which is why I ended up with so much of the knowledge that I do have, that I'm able to actually see what's going on. But there are little clues in science that will help us. And most people don't even read. You know why? Because we're anxious about reading.
Right. I mean, nowadays our attention span is very short because of the bombardment. But what about how does that relate to the ethics and morals of a person, in terms of how would we connect that attachment theory, the holding of the baby, the way that we are fed, the way that the connection thrives or not thrives? How would you say that channels into how somebody may or may not develop ethically or morally?
Morals, we are not actually moral creatures. Like humans are animals. So we have they call it the triune brain. And so we have a reptilian brain, like all reptilians. Then we have a mammalian brain, like all mammals. And then we have, so I'm just going to use a simplified word. They call it the R system, which is the reptilian brain, then the old mammalian brain, which is the limbic system. And then they have what they call the new mammalian brain, right? And so what happens is, like, if we get traumatized, if we get upset, then our conscious, because they talk about higher and lower consciousness.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what happens to us if we get upset? We go into the fight or flight, which is in the reptilian brain. And in fact, reptilians are not even the most aggressive. Like, we are aggressive because we have emotions. So and we plot. Because the ego is a plotter. In the Bible, when it says you're like the devil, who is a liar from the beginning, and he's the father of lies. Our ego has to lie because the ego is transient. It has to go into different realities and do different things. So it has to be malleable. So what happens to us when we are traumatized, when we are upset? We don't use this higher function. It actually shuts down. And then we go into the animal brain, the limbic, emotional, and the animal brain is what our consciousness goes into, and that's why we become so aggressive. Now remember that we're changing.
What I mean, not people living right there, so Patrice.
But you will notice what happens in class. Like for the children who are not getting the help at home because their mums are stressed and they just have too many problems because of all the stress. They can't help their children. The children think they're dunce. The child is going to get beaten. And so there's a trauma there already because the child has got low self-worth, low self-esteem. They can't concentrate. They don't know why. So they're constantly in their fight, flight, freeze, or faint.
Right.
That's going to make the child passive, or they're going to become aggressive. It depends on where your culture is as well.
Absolutely.
Then if
So
you have all these, sorry, go for it.
no, I'm mapping it onto where we are.
Mhm.
I'm mapping it onto where we are locally here, where we are internationally. We they say we refuse to be brainwashed again.
Mhm.
I think if we understand these things when we're dealing with other people and looking at even the solutions that the UIC plans to provide, because we have to answer these challenges.
Yes.
We have to be able to understand that when you see somebody in front of you behaving a certain way,
Yes.
it's not for you to necessarily just react, because it means you're in fight or flight as well, you know.
Mhm.
And so the information, and help me out here, Patrice, the information kicks the higher order thinking in if you are informed,
Yes.
and you slow it down and allow the brain to be engaged at the higher level.
Yeah.
You then can take a step back and process a different response
Exactly.
in terms of the reality that you're facing.
But we all, you see, because we are empathic as well, so our neurons mirror who we're around. So
Yes.
the more people believe in something, the easier it is to do something. Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when you mentioned the water, I had a client who wouldn't drink water or take vitamins. You talk about telling people to take vitamins. The person would think they're being poisoned. So if you are neurotic enough, right, there's
Mm-hmm.
excessive.
Break down neurotic for us, please. Not
So,
everybody
so
understands
yeah,
it.
neurosis is like an extreme form of anxiety, and
Right.
so that's when your fight or flight is on all the time, all
So it's on go every day, all
all
day.
the time from the moment you wake up.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I shouldn't do. Do you know what? I'm so I get that.
No, but we're trying to simplify it. I know where you want to go.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're on go all the time. You feel like you want to be, you're at the edge of your seat, and
I'm very
and
animated.
if 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 somebody say A, you say B, C, Q to Z, and you wonder why, and you don't understand, and yeah, that's all of that plus
Yeah.
stacks.
So
You know,
the
so
person is so neurotic, right? And so they because your fight or flight system is on all the time and it's connected to all your organs, but my body
mhm.
is misbehaving. So
Why? What happened?
so so
Mine is I'm sweating up a storm here, so I think this is real talk. So we just need a moment to just, because the topic is just your brain wants to
yeah,
just
it's all
go.
the lies,
Let's get it out
all
there.
in lies after lies after lies that makes us so
Yeah,
anxious that we don't even want to seek the truth. This is the problem,
yeah,
you see. When the
yeah,
fight or
yeah.
flight is on, something as simple as drinking water, the person doesn't want to drink water. If you say, you need to drink water, you need to drink this much, or you need to take some vitamins, they think they're going to be poisoned. And so they feel like their throat is closing up because one of the things that happens, because remember they're in the animal brain, which is
Right.
mostly, it's just unconscious, right? So you're having an
Yeah.
unconscious reaction
Response.
that you're not
Yeah.
choosing. So you feel like you're going to throw up. So if you try to do something, even though they come to food, working with anything to do with food is like the most difficult thing anyways, but or anything to do with ingesting things. But
Another way that shows up is that you'll see the person time out. They're not hearing what you're saying. You're saying the thing that may make the most sense, and they may just look at you like, okay, or them just got foolishness here talk. It may make perfect sense,
yeah,
but there's a timeout that happens. You just see the eyes dilate,
yes.
and it's like, what are you like? They look at you like literally you're speaking French, or they sometimes there's a way that people will ignore what you're saying too. They just go off as if you've never said anything.
But this
Yeah.
again is the defense mechanism of the ego, that
Mm-hmm.
it can actually make you not hear or see what's
Yeah.
happening. And if you've ever had an argument with someone and they say you say something or you didn't, or and they're not lying, you think, why are you lying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And even therapists would be like, the client said something last week, when you're talking to other therapists, they say the client
Mm-hmm.
said something last week, but this week they came back and they told me a different story. And
Story. Yeah.
the therapist then thinks the client is manipulating them because they don't go on to do other studies, right? And that's why I love neuroscience, right? In neuroscience, they do something called the split brain experiment. And
Mm-hmm.
they find out that the right hemisphere has a different personality to the left hemisphere.
And that ties into logic and creativity.
Oh yeah. But
And just for information, the right hand controls the left side
yes.
of the brain, or the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body,
Yes.
and the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body. That's just extra tidbit. Go ahead. Go
But
ahead.
it's not even connected. So imagine this.
Different.
Imagine this, right? Sometimes they separate the brain into four, but we just use three because I ain't no neuroscientist. I just research the stuff, right? So it's easier to do the reptilian or mammalian, new mammalian, neocortex, which is the matrix, by the way. That's why they talk about the new mammalian brain, and the neocortex. This is the seat of consciousness.
Right.
But I'm gonna just do one thing at a time, right? But
yes, slow it down. So go back to the two sides, logic, creativity. Yeah.
Personalities. So they're asking again, they're asking, how can there be hell? Who's going to hell if you have two personalities? So scientists can prove at least two personalities in us. Right? And this is so twisted. So my days.
Well, let me jump in.
Oh, please.
The person who you would consider to be thinking, let's say, clearly, more clearly, and responding more, I'm going to put in quotes, accurately in terms of, reasonably well, would be the person who, let us say those two personalities or those two sides are communicating very well, in balance.
Yes.
So you have people who operate a lot from the left side. They're highly logical, and it's tactical, and it's da-da-da-da and didactic. And then you have our creatives, who are our singers and our, poets and those people. But then you also have personalities who manage to blend both.
Yes.
And they tend to respond in a different way as well. And the person on the left who can also train the right side effectively to communicate and relate in a balanced, reasonable way. And so for the person on the right side, the creative can get scientific, and the scientific can get creative. And the balance becomes, all right, so if I say A, we can say, oh, then it's B, C, D, and then E. Not A, and then blue, green, yellow, Z. No, it resounds differently. So it's the way that you communicate and practice to have the two sides in balance, I guess, if that makes sense.
It does.
Trying to explain it is another thing, but
So if the more balanced you are inside, and the more you can question. So we're supposed to question. They tell us, you must, because that's why people are overworked as well, so that you don't have time to think. Do you know what I mean? But when you're thinking, and when there's, you feel like there's different person in here, and some people do talk to themselves, and that's actually healthy. Where people think it's not healthy to talk. Talk and reason.
No answer.
Yeah. Who are you talking to?
Yes, right. No answer. But I mean, it's actually a healthy
So
thing.
you're supposed to conference with yourself and find out, why am I doing this?
Right.
What is my motive? Right. Remember that your ego is tricky, and your ego is not really you.
Right.
So we're talking. There's multiple complexes taking place. So once you find the split, or once there's an ego and a self, then at least you've got these two things in there that can now talk and reason. It helps you to talk and reason with other people to say, well, maybe there's a different side. Right. Or when you start questioning your own feelings and motives, you're actually able to communicate better with the other person.
And then that speaks to understanding how our leaders should really delve into the knowledge of themselves. Everybody should do that, as a matter of fact. And I remember we talked about that it really starts with you, the person.
Yes.
Because even it's great that you have therapists. It's great that we have options to go and get treatment. But ideally, I mean, I see the president here talking about the UIC LEAP program ensures every child master themselves, master human relations, and master money or economics as the core of their studies, while learning all the other subjects in an integrated way. And that speaks to really educating from a holistic standpoint, where it's not just you're on one side of the spectrum
Yes.
or the other side of the spectrum, or we're focusing on math or just language.
Yeah.
We're looking at developing the whole person.
Yes.
And that's important, because that whole person would then be more ethical
Yes.
in terms of how they make decisions about other people's lives and about themselves, and so your level of trust should increase with that particular personality.
Yes.
Or so if we have more of that as a model, I think we'll be
The-
definitely much better as a society.
yeah. Well, yeah. There's one thing that you mentioned, and I want to go back to it a little bit, because you talk about the
Right.
person checking out. Sometimes you say sometimes you're talking to a person, they check out. And so in
Yeah.
therapy, like we're waiting, they say to wait till the same person shows up.
Yes, the consistency.
You're not
Absolutely.
always talking to the same person.
Yes, because Monday it might be somebody.
Yeah.
That does center. I get excited because it's the truth does that. But you might be wondering who you have Susie, and you see Susie Monday. Susie shows up different. Then Tuesday, Susie shows up as somebody else, and Wednesday, Susie shows up as something else, and you kind of wonder why Susie has stressed me, because me not really know what's going on with Susie.
Yes.
Right? But really and truly, this person is in a struggle that you may not really understand what's going on at the base of the personality development. And so this is how Susie not so sure how to show up. She's trying to show up, but not so sure how to show up. And so what we look for as therapists is, okay, who you are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're looking for the common line there. And we are also looking for the consistency. And then we treat the dissonance. We look at, okay, let's try to regulate the dissonance to get it on par, so that Susie can really show up as who Susie should and want to be in the world. Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. Like we have to recognize all these different, Jung calls them archetypes, but that's a like very advanced going the other way. But Jung calls them archetypes. So we need to know all these different archetypes. Sometimes they show up, people can experience them as mood because it's not that scary. But some people, they, I don't know how it is in Jamaica because I haven't been there, but in other places, they're whole different, different people. And we have to then say,
happens here.
Good. That this is you're not actually, because when Jung says when we split, so trauma is very helpful to get us out of this fog. So that's the first thing that you need whenever you're. And by the way, this is why they do the trickling effect of trauma, because they can't do it. They have to do it gradually. So these unethical governmental system, that's why they do it, gradually, because otherwise we'd be like, wait a second, what's happening here? So because trauma triggers that splitting where you realize like, wait a second, something else is going on here. That makes you want to go therapy. And then the therapist will say XYZ to you. Do you know what I mean? So
right. I mean, it's also why they keep us, or try to keep most of us, in a state. So can you imagine that the political machinery is working and you hear certain things being said and you wonder, how can leaders say these things on particular platforms to people? Because if I'm sitting there listening to that, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm delineating what you're saying because I'm really hearing what you're saying. And so when people are in that traumatized state, it is very easy to just say blue is green, green is yellow, white is whatever, and it just does this because this coming back to the same brain, limbic, mammalian. It goes here. It's not higher order thinking in effect. So the processing at the level of processing is not the same. So this is how they have been able to get away with it for 80 years.
But here's the thing, just talking about that, and then maybe we move on. I don't know if you want to move on or whatever, but just on this where we need to focus here, when
higher order thinking.
In meditate, this is why meditation is like the most important thing that we have to do as humans. And if we were told this is of the devil, we shouldn't meditate. You see what I mean? Because meditation, please, everybody listening here, please just go, because there's so much information. Please just go and look at any neuroscience website. just take a look at these different parts of the brain, watch a video or something, you would be so awed. And that's why I love that there's new scientists and ethical people out there who's now putting out. But it took people doing this. People year after year after year, people are doing it. People were getting killed. People are doing it. People were getting fired. People were doing it. So we have to take the role as well to, educate ourselves, because we have so much information, right?
Right.
So when we meditate, because we've got what they call the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic is one that governs fight, flight, freeze, or faint. It's automatic because animals have to survive.
That's how
right?
It's instinctive.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's all. That's why whenever you piece somebody off, it's so quick.
Yeah, that's why we're killing off so much people. Yeah.
And that's called the shadow. Basically, that's a different personality. It's not the regular everyday personality. That's when the person didn't even know why they did what they did, because they got triggered because of some trauma. You triggered them.
Yeah.
And
then take up the gun and go shoot you. They step on my toe, I take my $10.
Yes.
Yep.
Because the shadow comes out, and your shadow protects you. So I don't know if am I allowed to talk about this?
You go ahead, Patrice. We need to give the people the information. Just say it, because it's pertinent, and it's also not something that people hear about out there. And so if anybody here, the next time they're interacting with somebody and they have this body of information, remember, it's just a moment. Information is light and power. So you might not even realize that you're empowering somebody to think differently of their own understanding of somebody in their family, somebody somewhere in their life, about our systems, which is the goal, our systems and processes. When you go in at a place and the government work at them and behave a certain way, I tell you my strategy. I will share my strategy. I go everywhere early, because when they just wake up, they're more productive and they're in a better mood. Yes. You see, after 12 o'clock, when the lunchtime hits, because we are already in this type of pressure cooker headspace, everybody gets ticked off, them ready for go home before 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I strategically deal with our systems like that, as a matter of fact. I go to the bank early. Yeah. If I have to go to the ministry, if I go to the tax office, people are a lot more pleasant, and you find that, yeah, man. But you see, after lunchtime, trickle down to the 4 or 5 o'clock, I'm gonna need for go home. There now that limbic system kicks in, and you get the and they make you sit down and wait 20 more minutes, usually more than you have to, because I'm ready for go home. You understand?
Thank you.
So it is so layered in the processes that we deal with every day. If you have the information to understand, and even recognizing trauma, because we don't talk about trauma enough. We don't research it enough, and we have been historically traumatized in many ways, and you have to seek out your type of healing, possibly for your experience of trauma, and information helps that. So don't let us tell the people all the thing go.
Thank you.
Our line of work, you have to be, we have had this conversation, you have to be so conscious of, because you can get sued certain place, and you can. But we need to share. There is nothing wrong with sharing the information to empower people.
Good. Okay. So then I can go back to meditation, and I go back to the shadow. So what happens is we have the we have the the sympathetic nervous system, which is automatic. So it switches on automatically, right? But to switch it off, we need to switch on what is called the parasympathetic nervous system. Both can't be on at the same time. Okay?
Right.
So meditation is what helps to switch that off, or deep breathing.
And the parasympathetic nervous system is the place of calm. It regularizes, assists with more calm, reasonable responses. It allows your brain to go from red to blue. Yes. You're in that cool zone. And so if somebody even not tell you several bad words, you go, why are you doing that?
Give him a cuddle.
Why are you doing that? Hey, no, stop the cursing. What? Is not this the other brain that going kick in and say, yo, you want So yeah.
Because if you understand yourself, that it's not against you, that they're having their own issue, you don't take it personally anymore. You see? But usually what happens is like shadow talks to shadow. So when the other person, if you don't know what's happening, that it's got nothing to do with you, this person is triggered and they just need a cuddle. Do you know how many times? I'm not suggesting you do the things that I've done. I'm giving people cuddle who's got knives and shit. You know, sorry, I shouldn't swear. I know how to calm somebody down because I do energy work as well. So I know how to calm them down. I know how to give them a cuddle. And, you know,
this is the reason, guys, and this is the reason you're told to count from 1 to 10. Nowadays, I tell people count from 1 to 100. And then I even say to them, count from 100 backwards to 1. That's how far I go with it. Because by the time you get into that state of your mind slowing down, you know, the parasympathetic kicks in, you will have a much better response to a challenge that's facing you.
Yeah, absolutely. It does work for some people, but some people, listen, we're also crazy. Maybe because I'm here where we're a little bit nuts. Some people actually get aggressive. I'm serious. Some people get aggressive from counting because they're counting like, yeah, you wait. They're just waiting to do something. But if you're breathing,
but by then, if they're with you, you can intervene.
Oh yeah. If you
give them other tools. But I'm just relating it to why we're here. Count to 10. This is also why that was inserted. Count to 10. Walk it out. Go do something else. You know, these are the reasons, because we're trying to get the parasympathetic.
Leave the situation. Yeah, absolutely. But when we breathe, when we do this from the diaphragm, and we practice that throughout the day, you practice deep breathing.
You want to show them how to do that? Let's go. Sit up straight. Come, Patrice. 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
All right. I don't know if you want to
spine straight. Just 2 seconds to demonstrate. Diaphragm is
so your diaphragm
here.
Yeah. So when you're
down
breathing
here.
When you're breathing,
right, you want the swell.
When you're breathing in, your belly swells up like a balloon.
Right.
And when you breathe out, it goes down. Okay. So if you're doing it at home, so this is like mindful meditation. This is not even nothing that's going to make you see spirits or start talking to your ancestors.
No, we're not going there. We're not going there.
This is actually just what is called mindful breathing,
relaxation technique to help the body.
So what you can do, you imagine the breath, because what it does, it distracts that aggressive part of the brain to make it do something else, and so it calms it down. So if you're at home, you practice this, and it will make you over time a lot more chilled. So you breathe in as though you're breathing in. I like to do that with your feet, and you're bringing it up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're breathing down. I feel amazing. Do you know?
There you go. Do it one more time. Come, we need to feel amazing while you're sharing. One more time.
Breathe it in from your feet. And breathe out. And you can do that lying down. You know, I meditate every morning pretty much. But the more you meditate is the more you activate your cells. So there are people who, we're talking about so many things, because there's so many things and everything is attached to everything else. But
it's all connected.
Yeah, it's all connected. So whenever you do this stuff, after a while, your body starts to awaken. And this is what the Rasta, because Rasta was keeping a lot of information for us. You know what they've been through for us. Oh my goodness. But when they talk about vibration, if you meditate, you literally will vibrate. It is a real thing. It's not even a joke. It's your heart chakra opens up. I don't know how much I'm supposed to say, but things will happen. You don't need drugs. You don't need alcohol. You don't need nothing. You are just at peace with life.
Right.
And that's just from meditating.
So, coming back to our original topic, welcome VP Powell, VP Jasmine Powell joining us. Yes, Mr. or Miss Reed. Good that you're listening. So, what the ethics is going on?
Yes.
It's really that All of these things are connected,
Yes.
and we need to bring our understanding to the level of what's happening
Yes.
so that we can make empowered decisions in our daily lives and in our processes, so that ripple effect can be felt all over. It starts with you, it starts with me, it starts with each person that's even on this live. It starts with each person that you're connected to. And by the time you look, the ripple effect will be felt all over. Yeah, this connection came up in a meeting we were having. And I think we just started to have, I don't remember the conversation, but we went off in the therapeutic world, and Mr. President went, you two need to be on a live. And so just from that, that's how we end up here. But Patrice is in the UK, in Ireland. I'm here in Jamaica, but we connect on the principles of treatment and understanding the bowels of trauma and how that can affect people's behavior and decision making in their daily lives. So this is really what we're speaking to. When you understand that this is what is impacting you, that you may not even be thinking about in terms of managing your own life and process, being healthy psychologically, behaviorally, emotionally, socially, financially. That's what the platform of the UIC is also about, helping us all, helping people to get there, everybody. So come join with on the thing, come join me in the movement, show up, volunteer, donate. Let's put, I always say, put the money where the mouth is and the mouth where the money is. You know, we got to act. We have to do something to change the trajectory of the future. So we are 45 minutes in, 47 minutes in. Can you imagine, Patrice? That is why I look at the time and go, oh my gosh. So we may need a part two.
No, please don't do that to me. I was studying this so much, and I was like, I didn't want to even do it. Do you know what?
We think, Rosemary, we need a two.
You
Because
really helped me.
we don't even touch the tip of the iceberg yet, you know.
Oh God, I was hoping I'll do this once, and I'll just,
We probably will record the next one to make it easier on you.
If anything I want people to get from this is to understand that there is something called coercive control, okay? And it's deliberately done, and it's been done for centuries. It's been done for a long time. They keep on doing this to us, rolling it over from generation to generation, okay? And so it's psychological programming that's designed to cause us to be violent or to act out negatively against each other. So we just keep perpetuating this violence.
Right.
Meanwhile, they add in systems of crazy making system.
And things to the food that you're eating.
And things to our food and everything else. Absolutely. And so if you get anything from this, and I wanted to, like, I don't know if I can read something from this book in Willie Lynch.
Sure, you can. Before we do that, I just want to connect with that point by saying sometimes we don't recognize the machinery that's behind a lot of the things that we interact with on a daily basis. I usually say to my students, even when you think about Burger King, when you think about different companies, people who manufacture cars, they usually have a sociologist or a psychologist on their board, somebody, a neuroscientist who understands human behavior, and they know, oh, the color yellow affects humans this way. The color green affects people this way. We need to put ingredients in the food that when they eat it, they feel like they're sitting on the beach at the Caribbean Sea. There are systematic processes involved in making these decisions that affect our lives on a daily basis. And so
they actually
information is power.
We're talking about that with McDonald's, the coloring they use for McDonald's, because those two together, they found out that it makes us more hungry.
Yeah.
So imagine that.
Take your Willie Lynch out. I see Naika, you're joining us to say something, or you're telling us we need to close. Go ahead, Patrice, take us out with that.
If I don't get to say anything more, and I would have loved to just touch on what had happened in the last meeting because we talked about some things that affected the UIC.
The part two.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
We'll record that. Make it easier for you. So
okay, thank
read
you.
your Willie Lynch thing to take us out. Read it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And
What
then
I want to say is that there were people who made these slave programs, okay? And then there are people who guard it. So the governments of the world, they guard these things, okay? So these governments, this is why we need to get those colonialists out. There is no way that we can be free if they're not out. That's the whole thing. Because they are guarding the system that was created.
Right. So we allow you to read this to close out. Thank you so much, Unite Us, for joining us. Now you're going to read it before we go because we need to hear it.
Okay.
So go ahead and read it, and then we say bye-bye to our listeners who have joined us today.
This is Willie Lynch, who had learned these things from studying these kind of slavers book, right? So he learned from the ancient Greeks and Roman slavery system, okay? And they learned from others. So they've been passing this down and keeping us like this, right? So he says, you are not only losing valuable stock by hanging. This is when they used to lynch people. That's where they get the word lynching from. You are having uprising. Slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the field too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires. Your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I am not here to enumerate your problems. I am here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slave for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger, and I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. There's a lot more. Yes. But if you notice, they then impregnated people, basically raping the women, making them different colors with different shades of, kinks of hair, then use that against. So every single thing that people have, like people don't want their natural hair, people don't like their skin, all this stuff was all engineered. All engineered.
And that's what the ethics is going on.
All engineered. And that's this book here talks about not only training slaves, but not only how to make slaves, but how to make masters. So they actually conditioned people to believe they're superior. So those people genuinely believe it.
Right. And now it's integrated. It's literally there with you every day, living, being as an essential part of how our systems operate.
That's why they can't see that what they're doing is unethical. For them, it's not. You have to understand, they don't see reality the way we do.
Right.
They do not. Because they're conditioned, just like people are conditioned to not even know who they are, but so are they. They're not conditioned to know who they are. Right. They actually believe they're superior. And if you're superior, you can use people for your pleasure. Because that's also about pedophilia. Everything that we see has been engineered. Pedophilia. Yeah. I'm so overexcited again. I'm going to calm myself down. The whole thing.
Absolutely.
Every single thing, every problem, every one of them is engineered. And the things that are happening in Jamaica's only just catching up. Jamaica's 20 years behind. Mm-hmm. I know this because I know, but I'm going to just stop talking.
We have to have the part 2, Patrice. We have to have the part 2. I thank you so much. We could have gone in so many directions, but I think we got salient points across. I thank you for making the time, our UK Diaspora member. Any final closing thoughts? Thank you for joining us, Uniters. I see you all in the chat. Yes, and you're agreeing one UIC for real. We must push back that outdated system. Absolutely, Mr. Noble. And our president says the UIC will retrain our people's mind, body,
Yes.
and personality. That is the goal. We have to retrain right down to the cells,
Yes.
because it's now a pathology. It's generational. The babies are born with it from what is in the cells from 10, 20 years ago. So over to you, Patrice, for your last word, if anything else, and then we say bye.
I just want to say thank you. I just want to say I had so much to say, like Mr. Patterson, like I can't even, I have never
Yeah,
met,
Mr.
I had a
Patterson.
whole bunch of stuff, I can't let, if anyone knows what this man and who this man is, and I believe that we all need to protect him. That's what I feel. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is Mr. Patterson is I would say our only hope. That's how strongly I feel. And because I study this thing, if you see how many books I have on the subject, the philosophy of freedom, and
Yeah,
everything that spirit has told me is what Mr.
Mr.
Patterson.
Patterson's. Yeah.
I'm like, is this man like a prophet? Like everything I
Yeah,
think
no, I
about,
always say when I listen, because we're trained to listen from the inner ear and so when you're listening and you hear Mr. Patterson and you see the things, I'm like, is where this man come? Is he for real? Because I don't hear, like a perfect pitch. It's a perfect pitch, and you still don't see the dissonance yet. You know what we're used to seeing? You will see challenges from a humanity standpoint, but in terms of the philosophy and president of the UIC and the platform he's created with him and his wife, phenomenal. I don't see a replica yet, so I agree with you 100%. So thanks for that. So one Joseph Patterson, yes, VP Powell, the new Marcus Garvey. Mr. Wade Noble says that. I think we just need to end on that point. Thank you so much again for joining us, Miss Elliot. Thank you, Naika, behind the scenes. And thank you, those of us who joined today, including our president and other members of the team. One Jamaica, stronger together. We will talk, Patrice. Take us out, Naika. Have a good rest of your Sunday afternoon. Thank you again for joining us. Take care.